The Galactic Adaptation Evaluation Station thrummed with cold efficiency, its white floors stretching into endless corridors and observation decks filled with holographic panels glowing faintly under fluorescent alien light, and Captain Arya Sloane stood rigid before the main observation viewport, her dark skin reflecting the shifting lights of her Zenthari overseers as they studied her, while representatives from 52 species braced themselves in their separate containment zones, each preparing for the trial that would define whether their civilizations would be deemed adaptable, obsolete, or catastrophic. Attention, boomed Commander Tharvos through the universal translator, his iridescent green-tinted skin undulating with what his species called amusement, a ripple of glee that humans could only describe as the unsettling twitch of a predator studying prey. Every species will be stripped entirely of technology. No tools, no energy constructs, no artificial means of survival. You will be placed in a controlled Earth-like environment, with flora and fauna representative of a planet we've observed in your quadrant. 72 hours of independent survival will grant your species a classification of adaptive. Anything less will be noted accordingly. The galaxy cannot afford entities that cannot endure. Arya pressed her face against the clear containment barrier, her chest rising slowly with practiced calm, taking in the simulated wilderness beyond, a temperate expanse with rocky outcrops, a shallow stream winding through reeds, patches of edible flora and dense tree cover in the distance. Beside her, her teammate Jace Ormond flexed his fingers and toes, a ritual he performed when nervous but focused, while Ambassador Raina Chen muttered to herself, lips trembling, "They're treating us like lab specimens." Jace tilted his head, eyes steady and dark. "That's exactly what we are to them, Ambassador. But that doesn't mean we break." Arya turned to him, the corners of her mouth barely twitching. "Then we don't. It's simple. We adapt. We survive. That's what humans do." The Zenthari, elegant, tall beings with translucent, color-shifting skin and long appendages, had assumed that technology was the defining trait of intelligence. They had never encountered humans before, creatures who evolved to manipulate the world with nothing but their minds and bodies. When the containment fields dropped, chaos exploded across the 52 evaluation zones simultaneously. Voltraxians flailed without their bioelectric suits, Therians screamed as their neural amplifiers sputtered uselessly, and dozens of species that relied on centuries of artificial augmentation immediately faltered, clutching at roots, rocks, or each other in panic, while Arya and Jace moved with precision, separating instantly to survey resources, their movements efficient, practiced, almost rehearsed from a lifetime of wilderness survival simulations. Within seconds, Arya identified a shallow cave beneath a rocky overhang near the stream, with flowing water and edible plants she recognized from both field research and ancestral memory, and she began collecting fiber strands from the local flora, while Jace moved toward a rocky ridge, scanning stones for workable lithic material. Quartz, flint, obsidian, none ideal, but serviceable, and within moments he had selected a rounded hammerstone and a flat core, placing them with deliberate care. Before beginning to strike, the small cracks ringing with a sound the other species had not anticipated, a rhythm dictated by millennia of hominid adaptation, and in under 2 minutes he had produced a functional blade, crude but sharp enough to carve, to pierce, to survive. Arya returned to find him already constructing a fire bow with flexible green saplings and bootlace cordage, carving notches into a hearthboard with a quartzite knife, and she smirked faintly, holding up plant fibers she had processed into cordage material. "We'll have nets for trapping fish and small animals by tomorrow," she said, voice calm and commanding, while Jace laughed softly. "Not bad for a couple of humans in the wilderness of an alien species test." Within 6 hours, they had established a base camp worthy of their Paleolithic ancestors. A fire crackled within a stone circle, fish caught in a small were roasted on green sticks, bark and fiber woven into baskets, bone needles threaded with plant-derived string, and a hide from a rabbit analog tanned with care, brain tissue used as natural enzymes, all completed without a single failure, without hesitation, without doubt. From the observation decks above, the Zenthari, along with diplomats and observers from dozens of other species, pressed closer to their panels, murmurs of astonishment spreading across the alien networks. Whispers of, "They're not using technology, it's instinct, it's knowledge," filled the ether as the humans moved with a synchronicity that seemed impossible, teaching each other efficient not techniques, identifying edible roots while simultaneously monitoring water flow and shelter. Integrity, improvising tools, refining blades, constructing fire, and preparing sustenance, all without instruction, without guidance, without external devices. Commander Tharvo's skin shifted from emerald to pale blue, almost translucent with what his translators labeled awe. "We forgot," he muttered under his breath, voice rippling faintly through the translator. "We forgot that the first tools are not silicon and metal. The first tools are the body and the mind. Every other species has evolved dependent on artificial augmentation to compensate for their limitations. Humans are the tools." By the 48th hour, 37 species had failed catastrophically, evacuated from their zones by medical teams after lacking water, shelter, fire, or edible sustenance. Another 9 had barely survived, huddled together, feeble and exhausted, while Arya and Jace had not only survived, they had established a semi-permanent settlement. Complete with storage, clean water access, sustainable food collection methods, and primitive defensive structures, their every action demonstrating foresight, adaptability, and evolutionary intelligence that surpassed even the highest expectations. When the containment barriers rose, the Galactic Council gathered, luminescent species from over 50 worlds staring at the humans, who emerged not battered, not defeated, but calm, competent, and unflappable. Arya leading with the confidence of a seasoned field operative, holding the quartzite knife that Jace had fashioned with his bare hands in 90 seconds. The very knife that had transformed the trial into a demonstration of human ingenuity. Commander Tharvos approached, his skin now a complex pattern of colors translating to reverence. "Your species exceeded all parameters we established to measure basic competence." "How?" Jace glanced at Arya, then at Tharvos, voice calm but firm. "You took away our technology. But you can't take away 4 million years of evolution. You can't take away the accumulated knowledge of 10,000 generations. You can remove the devices, but not the human mind. We didn't survive despite losing our tools. We survived because we are the tools." Arya stepped forward, gaze unwavering. "This was never about the equipment. It was about the species. Humanity doesn't survive because of what we hold in our hands, but because of what we carry in our heads, and in our hearts and in our instincts. We adapt. We endure. We invent from nothing. That is our technology. That is our power." Across the observation decks, the alien species reacted in ways that defied description. Displays flashed in myriad colors and patterns, clicking mandibles tapped, tentacles twitched. Collective vocalizations formed untranslatable waves of sound that nonetheless resonated as respect and awe, while Tharvo's skin pulsed with a light so brilliant it nearly blinded the nearest observers. The first recorded display of what his species called profound reverence. The council voted unanimously to create an entirely new classification for humans, a category that acknowledged that no prior measures of adaptability or evolutionary success could contain the breadth of their capacity. And as Arya and Jace were escorted back to the diplomatic quarters, Jace nudged her, "Think they'll ever run that test again?" Arya smiled, holding the quartzite knife close. "Not a chance. We just reminded the galaxy that humans don't need to be the fastest, the strongest, or the most technically advanced. We just need to be the most adaptable, and nobody adapts like we do. And hey, if you enjoyed watching humans rewrite the rulebook, don't forget to subscribe and join the crew for the next adventure." Outside the station's viewport, a pale blue planet rotated slowly, a cradle of life, a reminder of where human ingenuity had first sparked, scarred and resilient, alive and persistent, while the stars beyond bore silent witness to the species that had just shown an entire galaxy that true survival is not measured by gadgets or weapons, but by the mind, the body, and the will to endure, innovate, and persevere against impossible odds.